Hey community, my name is Sareen Musselman. I am the Adult Ministry and Community Engagement Director at our Downers Grove location. We just got done filming week 3 of our series on finding financial freedom. I'm sitting down with teaching pastor Tammy Melchien, and we're gonna ask a few questions here, get into the message a little bit. So in today's message, you started out by telling us, which I can definitely relate to, that money and finances is one of those areas that we feel a little hesitant to talk about.
Sure.
What's interesting though is when I look at Jesus's teachings, he actually talks about money quite a bit. So is there like a common misconception you can think of that we tend to have about what Jesus actually said about money?
Well, I think the biggest common misconception would be that we shouldn't talk about it. Because again, he does talk about it a lot, and one of the key places where he talks about it is in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 6, and he talks about not storing up treasures on earth, but storing up treasures in heaven. And that doesn't mean just like for after you die. When he says heaven, it means like investing in kingdom things here. But then he goes on to say, you basically can't have two masters. And he says, you can't love God and love money. And I think it's always interesting to me that out of all the things that he could have said that are going to compete for our devotion to God, like there's a lot of things that could compete for our devotion to God, but he zeroes in on this one as the most dangerous, the most tempting to take us away from living in a seek first the kingdom kind of way. And I think that is really should be a wake-up call for us. And I think it's one of the reasons why, if we sincerely want to be kingdom people, be a kingdom community that are following Jesus in Jesus' way, which I think we really want that, we've got to bring this area of our lives, both our struggles, our failures, our encouragements and the steps of faith, because sometimes we even are hesitant to share the good things that we've seen God do in this area, and I feel like that's one of the ways the enemy kind of keeps us from being seek first kingdom people is by making this something that we think we shouldn't talk about.
Totally.
And so I think that's why we take these weeks to talk about this as a church, because we've got to help one another grow. We've got to bring this stuff into the light.
Absolutely. There's so much power in sharing those stories, which you kind of get into in the message. And I love how you focused a bit on the difference between having a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. And that's where those stories really play out, the struggles and the failures, but also the places of freedom and where we can experience joy in this area too. Can you think back to a time in your life where you made a decision to embrace an abundance mindset, and maybe what was the impact for you in that moment?
What comes to mind for me is this was years ago. I was pretty new at community, and I think it was the first generosity kind of initiative that I was a part of. And I remember, making a pledge to that, making a commitment to that was beyond what I knew that I, on paper, could do. And, it was the first time I took a little bit of a leap of faith type thing in that way. I mean, I trusted that I wasn't going to get kicked out of the church if something, but took a little bit of a leap of faith in that. And I'll never forget it, because about 3 weeks after I made that commitment, a friend of mine emailed me, and she said, "Hey, I have a friend that is moving into the area, is starting a new job. And before she decides specifically where she's going to live, she would love to find a place to live for 6 months, and this is how much she's willing to pay in rent for a room." And honestly, the 6-month commitment that she was willing to make for rent was the exact amount that I had pledged above and beyond my tithe for that. And so it was just one of those, it was a humbling thing, because it was one of those things where, man, I stressed out and I, about this and felt like, oh, this was such a big thing. And then it almost felt like, God was just saying, really,
Yeah.
You can trust me.
Yeah.
If this is what's on your heart to do, you can trust me in that. But that's not to say, so I've had experiences like that in my life, but maybe one misconception, too, is I don't think the scarcity battle ever really goes away.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it does for some people, but it never has for me. Because even though, I've tried to be faithful in this area, I've tried to stretch myself at certain times, that kind of, you don't have enough, don't do it, all of that has never gone away for me in this. And so, which is probably, again, one of the reasons why Jesus spoke to it so often and so intently, because he knew this is going to be a battle of discipleship, probably at all steps along the journey.
Yeah, I think that's so relatable because I noticed that it's almost like a daily decision to choose the abundance mindset, to choose to trust God, than to fall into the fear of a scarcity mindset.
Yeah, and also because, as Americans, we are daily fighting a consumeristic battle too.
Exactly.
So it's not like you make this decision and then you get to be in this little bubble where all those advertisements things are, go away.
We're good now. I can just shut all that off.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
We're constantly in that battle.
Definitely. I'm really grateful for God's grace, the gift of grace, which you kind of get into in the message as well. And all those moments that I do have to go back and choose again and again and again to trust God.
Yep.
Even though I have so many stories as well of times when down to the penny, it seems like God provides and just makes it clear, like, I got you, I'm in control. Yeah. And yet I still need to trust him again and again. You get to that at the end of the message of what it looks like to trust God and to take steps forward. And you talked a little bit about your own story of growing up and seeing that modeled with your parents. To speak to someone who's watching this right now who finds themselves at that place of saying, all right, I'm ready to try this. I'm ready to trust God. I'm ready to take a step forward. What's a piece of wisdom or advice that you would share with them from what you saw modeled in your own parents?
Yeah, I am tremendously grateful to my mom and dad for that. And I don't even know, I don't know if they were being intentional in modeling that for me. I think they were just going about their business. But again, for those of you that are parents out there, your kids, they see what you do. They understand, they know. And I am so grateful because it was almost like I remember getting my first job. I worked at Taco Bell in the mall. Polyester brown that was too short for me because I'm tall. And I remember I worked 10 hours a week and I thought it was oh my gosh.
I got this.
But there was something in watching my parents model that from that initial first paycheck, I decided to tithe. And I don't even know that I decided it. It was this is what you do. Yeah. And so for so many of us, and again, I encourage you, if you're a parent, you modeling this, you going through the hard work of breaking the kind of resistance to it could be a tremendous gift to your kids. And, for them to see you live this out. Again, I shared in the message, there are these moments that I have where I'm man, if I didn't tithe, I could do this. Yeah. But those are really they're pretty fleeting moments because I also have just seen the faithfulness of God in my life from, when I started in ministry and was making $20,000 with no benefits. Yeah. And I have never felt like I've been at want. And I believe that's part of the blessing of God, for that type of faithfulness. And I just think, for us to model that for the next generations, maybe we could help them not have quite the same struggles that so many of us have.
Yeah, what an incredible legacy to be able to leave, to even start to break cycles in our lives and in our families and generations, to learn to model faith and generosity and trusting God. That could be really powerful. So thanks for sharing.
Sure.
Friends, if you want to take these steps forward to learn how to trust God and to begin building that legacy of generosity and seeing God move in those places of your life where you make room for an abundance mindset instead of a scarcity mindset, we have all kinds of resources for you. We have an upcoming money and budgeting course and many other opportunities for you to grow in this area. So head online to communitychristian.info. If you missed the message, be sure to go back and watch it, catch up on the series. So much wisdom there. Thanks for joining us today. Have a wonderful week.
Well, we traded in our minivan for a Honda Pilot because now the kids can open their own doors, you know. I mean, that's not why you go from minivan to like SUV, but like,
Yeah.
it's true that the automatic doors of a minivan are a just amazing thing.
My 9-year-old, we were just in a parking lot and saw a family like getting their kids into a minivan. He's 9, and he looked at me and said, "We need a minivan so I don't have to open my doors anymore."
So now it's like the older
It's
the kids
reverse.
get- yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes perfect sense.